Welcome back to the Hard Thing Podcast. I wanted to give you another quick update about the rebrand that is happening in 2 weeks before we get to today's show. Next week, I'm going to spend an entire episode detailing the rebrand as well as why I'm rebranding and what I hope happens because of the rebrand. But first, let me tell you the new name of the podcast. Starting in 2 weeks, this podcast will be changed to Becoming the Hero. Ever since I started the show, I've gotten all sorts of strange jokes about the name of the show, and rightfully so. The name of the show wasn't very good, the Hard Thing Podcast. It's a specific title, maybe, but it definitely has a lot of double entendres, and hopefully the new podcast name changes that. Let me also just mention that with the new show, I will be doing a lot more experimenting. I'm going to find and create content that is truly worth your listening. Anyways, come back next week to hear the full details of the rebrand, but until then, let's get to today's show. Nope. Too slow. I stared at my best friend Ty in disbelief. How was it possible that I still didn't do the obstacle course in a fast enough time? I jumped from the board to the piece of plywood and then onto the large rock as fast as I could. How could it not have been fast enough? I kept trying, but later ended up leaving with my parents in tears. I tried so hard, but just couldn't make it. Welcome back to Becoming the Hero. I'm your DM, Justin Lewis. Today, you and I will learn how to take the lessons from our heroes, real or fictional, to help us add more adventure into our lives, make worthwhile memories, and level up in meaningful ways. The story I shared at the beginning of today's show was a real experience from when I was around 12 years old. My friend and I had set up a makeshift obstacle course in his backyard. We jumped from obstacle to obstacle in the dirt field, and I timed him, and then he timed me, and, it was all just so much fun. Nowadays, the interesting thing is that would be considered exercise, but back then, it was just a game. Because it was just a game, we were both able to push each other and reach farther than we thought we could. We pushed our limits. And that's the point of today's show. I want to share actually 5 ways that you can start gamifying your life to help you push you to your limits and past, and even have more fun. Also, a side note, my friend was actually lying. When he timed me, he lied about the time. He purposefully said I didn't do it faster than him just to see how fast I could go. I ended up getting like a good 7 seconds faster than him. And he just did it specifically to see how much farther past my limits I could push myself. That is the power of gamification. So let's start with number 1. Number 1 is a simple pedometer. One of my recent gamifying tools has been a pedometer. Many of us live very sedentary lives, unfortunately. I know personally, I work online at home. For 8 hours a day, roughly, I'm on my tush in front of a screen. Obviously, we all have goals of improving our health and maybe shedding a few layers of triglycerides, but for a lot of us, we can get into the workouts. But improving our overall activity level is somewhat more difficult. Enter the pedometer. This isn't any revolutionary tech. It's been around for a while, but it's become more advanced. If you can add a smartwatch, then you've got even more capability in your hands. And let me tell you how I'm using it right now. You see, I'm not interested in massive change. Obviously everyone is, but in my estimation and knowing myself, I burn out really easily. So I'm looking more for long-term life change. And on the app that I have, it allows you to set a daily step goal. And the step goals can be increased or decreased by 100. That's really important for me because I started this a few weeks ago and set the step goal to 5,000 a day. That's important because based on the data that I had before setting the step goal, I was about 50% hitting 5,000 a day before that. So 5,000 was a good goal because it raised up everything else, and then the days when I would hit 5,000, it was usually over 5,000 by a lot. So ever since then, I've hit my goal every single day. Not just that, but I've gradually increased it to 5,200 steps per day. And this has led to interesting experiences of me taking little walks while my wife goes and gets a pedicure out 30 minutes away from our home. And for one, it's kind of an interesting thing to be able to go for a walk in a place that you've never been. But my idea is just to gradually adjust up, but working on consistency over everything so as to help myself create a more all-around active life. Number 2 is your screen time widget. This is also a very common tech tool. The whole point of gamifying your life is making the worthwhile things you want to do more interesting and easy. The goal is to get you to live a more abundant, adventurous life in the real world. And that does mean that you'll have to spend less time in the virtual world, sometimes. There are some of us who might not have trouble with that. There are some of us who might actually have a lot of trouble with that. And screen time widgets let you see how much time you're spending where. And the best way to fix things is to first measure them distinctly. For example, my screen time says that I am down 43% from last week, which is sweet. Except for the fact that maybe I use my phone to do important things. I don't know. The important thing of the app is that it allows you to see how much time you're spending on which apps. For example, even though I was down 43%, I did see that I spent a little bit too much time on Instagram. And from there, you just identify the offending apps like I did, and then you lower the time on them here and there. Number 3 is a calorie counter app. Obviously, this is, again, not new, but another great way to help yourself gamify your life is by counting your calories with various calorie apps. There are tons of free ones out there. I do like MyPlate, but there are so many out there that you can just do a quick search and you'll find the right one for you. This lets you easily track what you eat, identify macronutrient trends, and then adjust your behavior to adjust those trends. It's a great way to gamify your life because if you share this data with a friend, you can kind of create some accountability there. Number 4 is Stash. And everyone knows about Stash. Everyone knows that you can use it to purchase parts of stocks or actual full stocks. It's a financial app. But it also gives you a dashboard with goals in investing. Specifically, it shows you, based on the number you have, your next investment goal. And I find that's really cool because it gives you a progress bar, and everyone, we're naturally inclined to see the progress bar finish. We want closure. We want completion. And so it naturally pushes you and incentivizes you to keep investing. And then actually, I want to share how I use my Stash. I don't actually particularly use it. I use it as a combination of investing and savings right now. So I use it and put all of our savings in there. I choose a fund, which is basically a large group of stocks that I'm relatively certain is pretty diverse and won't have incredible volatility. And I save a certain amount each paycheck. And that means I purchase stocks or parts of this fund with those savings. And I like this because this functions as our savings. It's still there, it's still saved. But if I am ever in an impulse buying mood and I want our savings, I have to go sell the stocks, which then takes a few days, so that way I can have that money. And then I have to transfer that money to my bank, which takes another few days. So the chances of me getting into an impulse buying mode with my savings money is really, it's hard because it's going to take a while. So it means that anytime we use that savings money, me and my wife talk about it, we make the full decision, and we kind of have to collectively pull the trigger and say, hey, we're going to do this because it's going to take a second. Not to mention the fact that Stash gives you better interest rates than your traditional bank. And if you're like me, you invest in a specific fund which is focused on dividends. So that way, like I said, you're getting dividends. And that's a great way to help build your wealth. But everyone does it differently. That's just how I do it. Number 5 is Habit Tracker. This is probably one of my favorite apps. I believe that habits and processes are more important than goals. In fact, processes and habits lead to accomplishing goals. This app helps you set up those habits and processes. It allows you to set daily, weekly reminders on things that you need to do to build habits for yourself that are healthy and that you do every single day. For example, one of the habits that I've worked on building up is that right when I'm out of bed, I do some sit-ups and push-ups. And I increase that amount every week, and it's a really good way for me just to start the day off right with getting some quick activity in and helping myself wake up. Another one that I do is reading books. Reading is very important, and I found that consistency, like I said, is much more important. I'd rather be able to digest a book and think about it and let it kind of seep into my life, sort of an osmosis way, over a period of time. And so I have a habit of reading a certain number of pages every single day. so that way I can, again, focus on consistently intaking wonderful information. And one thing that I like about this app is that it also allows you to kind of build up streaks, which is, as we know, if you're familiar with Snapchat, you know that streaks are a very powerful way of getting people to do something consistently. I know that my wife for a long time had a streak with her cousin for like 2 years, which is insane. And having seen some of their snaps, some of those pictures are just pictures of their foot saying, hey, just to keep up the streak. And so the fact that it allows you to have these streaks is a very powerful way to, like I said, gamify your life. So there you have it. Number 1, pedometer. Number 2, screen time widget. Number 3, calorie counter app. Number 4, stash. And number 5, habit tracker. There are so many ways to gamify your life. In fact, I'm probably going to do more episodes like this because I've even found a few in researching this episode that I'm actually testing out right now. And I want to kind of get a good review before I tell you about them. But thank you for listening to today's show. What method are you going to try? Let me know via Instagram. Send me a message. And I'd love to have a chat with you and see if maybe you found some methods that I haven't found. But thanks for joining me, adventurer. And until next week, happy adventuring.